the Ghost of Hound. My name's Simon.
And I'm McKelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 68 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 67 of A Game of Thrones, that's Sansa 6.
And as always, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you. And hopefully, while we're doing all that, we're going to provide you with some entertainment along the way.
We will summarise what's happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some reader mail. Be sure to check out the show notes. They provide some additional information about the characters, other things of note in this chapter, which will help you, particularly if you're not reading along. How are you, sir?
I am doing all right. Trying to get in the old holiday spirit. How about you?
Oh yes, it's for future listeners, we're closing in on Thanksgiving.
We are indeed. So
yeah.
I got Stacy had me. Well, she helped as well. Put up all the inside decorations for Christmas already. So.
Oh, okay.
So
you see, that's an interesting difference between the US and the rest of the world. So it's US Thanksgiving, I should say, which is the fourth Thursday in November. Is that how it's done?
It's when it says on the calendar that it's...
Okay.
I don't know.
You see, you would never pass the test to become an American citizen. You're lucky you were born here.
This is your first Thanksgiving as a U.S. citizen, so how about that?
It is. And 2020, what a year to be thankful for.
Yeah.
But what you were saying about Christmas decorations, you see, in the US, people sort of complain about the sort of fact that Christmas sort of creeps forward longer and earlier and earlier. But Thanksgiving is a natural start. It's very difficult. It is kind of hard to put up Christmas decorations before Thanksgiving without feeling a little self-conscious because you are skipping ahead a holiday.
Exactly. It's a good starting point. Usually I wait till the weekend after Thanksgiving.
Right. I grew up in the United Kingdom. We have nothing to stop us. September, you start to see Christmas things. I mean, well, frankly, it's getting cold and dark by September, so, you know.
Oh, I did not know that.
So it forms a natural break. You guys will never smear Christmas out the way the rest of us do because of Thanksgiving.
So that's what we're thankful for on Thanksgiving, I guess.
Although, I mean, honestly, I'm a big sucker for Christmas, I have to say.
Me too.
I get very excited about it.
Me too. I go all out front. You've seen my house at Thanksgiving. I mean, at Christmas.
Yeah, I am quite lazy, and so I will never decorate my house the way you do, Mr. Griswold.
Yeah, you know, I often wonder as the years go by and I find myself clinging to branches dangling on a 10-foot ladder, clinging to the branches of the trees in the front of my house. How much longer will I continue to do this? Not much longer if I fall right now. Anyway.
I've been complaining about the fact that my wife works in public schools and has been sent back to work with the children.
I am aware, yes.
Yes, so, and I know you're already aware of this, but just for the listener's sake, it's not a great idea, I don't think. Not with the current rate of infection of COVID in the United States. My wife, it took her 2 days of being back in class with the kids to hold hands with and spend significant time with a COVID-positive child. And so now she's isolating and is beginning to show some symptoms. So.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so
well,
she's had a test. We don't have the results yet, but fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed indeed.
And we bought a new bed, and her COVID backside is in that bed now.
Oh man, she's tainting the bed with her COVID germs.
Exactly. It should be me. I'm the pure one. You should have the bed.
That's right. She should be quarantined to the non-new bed room.
Exactly. Look, I'll just show you where I am, McKelly. No one else can see. This is not good podcast material, but there's the spare bed where I get to sleep, and here's the bed.
You don't have much space left in that room.
I know, there's nothing. There's just me, 2 beds, and I spend 23 hours a day in this room because this is where I work as well.
Right. So oh man,
I'm losing my marbles.
Well, this is a good outlet for you.
Oh,
why don't we talk about Sansa and her plight? Make you feel better about
Let's
yourself.
Get down to business. Yes. Relatively speaking. So the last time we saw Sansa, she was taking in Joffrey's first court session. Well, last time we had Sansa's point of view. She was taking in Joffrey's first court session as king. She must have been wearing a scarlet direwolf on her dress because the other lords and knights in attendance did their best to avoid any contact with her. After witnessing the shake-up with the Kingsguard, sell me out, Sandor Clegane in Jaime, the new Lord Commander, she made an impassioned plea to Joffrey for mercy for her father. Joffrey agreed that if Ned admits that Joffrey is the true king, he will give him the mercy that Sansa asked for. However, when the time came, not in her chapter but in Arya's chapter, and Ned said all he was supposed to say, Joffrey asked Sir Ilyn to bring him Ned's head. Sansa had very little choice but to watch in horror.
Oof.
So, let's see how she's doing, shall we?
Yes.
McKelly, over to you.
Let's see. How might Sansa be doing after that? Well, as you might expect, Sansa is really struggling with all that transpired on the High Septon's pulpit outside of the Great Sept of Baelor. She has no appetite, she won't leave her room, and she spends her time in either nightmare-filled sleep or laying in bed agonizing over the betrayal and loss. She did all she was asked. She wrote the letters saying what the Queen wanted, and she's been good and loyal.
Eventually, King Joffrey pays her a visit and insists she attend his court. He's accompanied by the Hound and 2 other members of the Kingsguard. When she asks to be left alone, Joff has the Hound remove her forcibly from the bed. When Sansa then begs to go home, Joffrey informs her that Queen Cersei still intends for them to marry, so she isn't going anywhere. Sansa wants nothing to do with him as he, killed her father,
right,
and he promised mercy. Joffrey says he did give him mercy, a clean death. Sansa says she hates him, which is met with a punch in the face from Sir Meryn Trant at Joffrey's command.
After the rest leave, after the old punch thing there, the Hound tells Sansa to do as Joff wants and save herself some pain. Sansa cleans herself up and attends the court session, as requested. She watches alone as Joff makes sadistic rulings, and as the court ends, Sansa tries to flee back to her chambers. However, she finds Joff and his entourage waiting for her. He wants to show her something. Sansa has no choice but to comply, and he leads her to the stairs to the battlements. When she realizes what's happening and fights it, but eventually relents after some prodding from the Hound.
As Sansa expected, Joffrey wanted to show her her father's head on a spike. Sansa looks but refuses to see. Joffrey then walks down the line of spiked heads, showing her more of the people who fell from his favour, including, rather gratuitously, Septa Mordain. Eventually he informs... I said that with the wrong tone of voice. I mean, I was excited to see Septa Mordain again, but
not in this.
It was just her head, yes. Eventually he informs her that her brother Robb has beaten his uncle Jaime in battle, and that he, Joffrey, will soon ride to battle, destroy Robb, and give her his head too. In a fit of madness, Sansa retorts that maybe Robb will give her Joffrey's head.
Uh-oh. Probably not a good idea, but...
Well, it's a great idea, but... It's not a great idea to voice it to Joffrey.
Yes, that's exactly right. Great idea, bad idea to voice it. Joff has Sir Meryn strike her again, twice this time. Joff then tells her to quit crying and clean the blood off of her. It's unbecoming. Sansa realizes that Joff is standing near the edge of the battlements. A simple push would send him falling to his death. However, as she works up the courage to do it, the Hound steps between them and gently cleans the blood off of her face. Oof.
So, actually, I always do this. I always interject at this point with a thing from right at the very end of the chapter,
Good.
Sort of derailing the whole chronological discussion you've got planned for us, McKelly. But
what do you got this time?
Allow me, if you will. Did you think that Do you think that the Hound suspected and saved Joffrey?
I do indeed, yes.
You do?
Uh-huh.
Was there enough evidence, or is that just your inference?
The word between...
Or was it just... It could have been a matter of timing, right? It's possible it was just a matter of timing.
Yes, it could have been coincidence. He just...
Right.
It seemed out of character that he would, in front of Joffrey, bend down and dab at the blood on her face. And the word between was in italics. He stepped between her and Joffrey. That word was in italics, which made me... to me, it felt like he was intentionally getting between the two of them, because he possibly...
That is top-notch investigative journalism there, McKelly. Thank you.
I do have...
I think you're right.
I have this down there at the bottom of the discussion, but I might as well just...
Well, you would, because you do it chronologically, yeah.
Might as well just say it now. To me, it felt like a bit of a failure in the first place to the of the Kingsguard, that they allowed him to be at the very edge of a battlement where someone could push him over. Maybe not let that happen. It's your job.
The reason
to
I mention
him.
the reason I mention it, I'll mention it more when we get to the comparison with the TV show, because what you just said is a good point, actually, when we get to the TV show.
All right.
So anyway, back to the start of the chapter.
Yeah, well, we get some of Sansa's perspective on the pulpit. Remember the actual chapter where Ned was beheaded and all this happened was the Arya chapter. So we didn't really know what was going on exactly with Sansa, only that she fell to her knees and was screaming hysterically. It turns out she could not look away. She wanted to turn away, but she couldn't. So she watched everything happen. And that had to be awful, obviously.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. We had talked last episode, you had mentioned that Arya will be dreaming of this moment for the rest of her life. Remember the last Bran chapter, we were saying, will the other Stark kids have had a similar dream about their father? And you were saying like, well, Arya's going to be dreaming about this every day for the rest of her life, possibly. Sansa too is dreaming about this every night and day.
Yes, and has a much stronger visual memory to draw upon.
Exactly, yes. So that made me wonder if... So she's dreaming of Ned, as the other kids had done, but, obviously she would be dreaming about this regardless of whether the other kids were having dreams or not. So it's, the fact that she had such close proximity to it all unfolding and watched it all unfold, we can't really tell whether that is messing with the dreams that Ned might have been trying to have with her after the fact or whatever, or if it was just the boys that had those dreams and she's just having terrible nightmares.
What you're saying is your cockamamie theory is neither disproven nor proven by Sansa's dream. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it was.
No, yeah, I mean, there's little to be drawn from it. Even that's kind of my thing about this whole chapter. It's kind of like what she's experienced is so awful that it's just kind of like you're just sort of morbidly watching her agony now.
Yeah.
It's kind of
yeah.
There's a little bit of action to sort of like tide this along, but the bits that we didn't talk about in the summary are just like the horror of what she's remembering and trying to go through as a 12-year-old girl.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like she's a grown-up or anything. She's a child.
Yeah. And, I don't know if she's able to walk this back clearly or not, but if she does, she might feel some fault because she's the one that went to the queen and said what her father's plan was before Ned could get Arya and Sansa out of King's Landing.
Yes, that is one thing that is not present in this chapter, right? There is no soul-searching and self-recrimination.
Yes, there's not.
Which is, I think that's something of a Sansa trait.
Yeah.
But this is new territory for Sansa, and so I do wonder if that will come.
Right. Yeah. She's 12. She might not be able to think through that kind of, tracing the steps back to see where she might have gone wrong and all this. Now, I think, Ned was digging his own grave the whole time since he got to King's Landing. Oh, yeah. So it's not to say that this was all Sansa's fault, but she might personally have not been there to witness it if she hadn't gone to the queen and told her he's planning on taking me back to Winterfell.
If anything, actually, she's still sort of, she still thinks that she was striking the right bargain. I did all you asked of me. I should have got my side of the deal. You know, it's not like I should never have talked to you people. It was more a matter of, it's not fair.
Right.
I did what you wanted. You shouldn't have done this.
Yep. One thing we definitely learned from seeing the cruelty that Joff seems to enjoy so much in this chapter is that when he smiled at her on the pulpit before saying, "Sir Illian, bring me his head," that was surely intentional and meant for maximum pain, because he seems to really enjoy causing her pain in this chapter. I think...
Yeah, there's actually two characters who this chapter really shows that they love to inflict pain. One of them is King Joffrey Baratheon, first of his name, and the other is George Martin, author of this. Because
I thought you were going to say Janus Slint.
he's not great either, but I mean, just the brutality of this.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I wonder as you write something like this, if you're just like, oh, maybe I shouldn't.
What is wrong with me?
Yeah,
Why am I having these thoughts?
I mean, there was that whole beheading, but I really want to go to a dark place. You know?
Yeah. Another thing about this early in this chapter is we see Joffrey in a crimson doublet with lions and a gold cape. But on the pulpit, when he was in public, he wore crimson as well, but with stags and lions. He was giving a little nod to his Baratheon, or at least pretend Baratheon roots. But, when we see him in private, he is just all Lannister in his attire. And I bring it up a lot because it's in the description a lot. So I believe it's intentional for us to see how he's becoming purely Lannister, which he is, but not even a nod to the Baratheons unless he's in public, and then it's just the slightest nod.
I'm going to flirt with spoilerism here, but I think as time goes by, we're going to see less and less stags and more lions, because I think they are whitewashing the Baratheons out of the royal lineage.
Yeah, sure seems it.
I literally don't remember if that's true, but I think it's a fair bet.
It seems like a fair bet from here, that's for sure.
So, one thing that I noticed was, he brought the Hound, who's been his bodyguard for a long time and is now a member of the Kingsguard, and he brought 2 other members of the Kingsguard. That doesn't seem that unusual that he would walk around with 2 or 3 members of the Kingsguard.
Right, yeah.
Most of the time. But when he wants somebody to inflict violence upon Sansa, he chooses Meryn Trant.
Yep, yeah.
That just seems a bit strange to me. You'd think the Hound has always been his lapdog.
Yeah, his personal protector.
Done what? Exactly. So, I wondered about that. One of the things that this chapter showed, and it's not the first Sansa chapter that showed that, is that the Hound has a soft spot for her.
Right.
He has. I don't know if it's romantic or if it's sort of like fatherly, but he cares about Sansa in a way that is unusual for the man.
Yes, I agree.
Well, at least we get the impression it's unusual for the man. We don't know the Hound very well. Most of what we know of him is through the Sansa chapters, and he actually seems a bit of a softie, to be honest. In
the last few Sansa chapters, he does. Previously, not so much. So,
remind me.
Well, he rode down Micah and
if
the butcher's boar.
If you're Micah's parents, you probably don't have that same softy view of him. Yeah,
right.
That's true. Good point. Sorry, Micah.
If I remember, I can't remember specifically, but when Tyrion slaps Joffrey in Winterfell, I think Joffrey and the Hound are making jokes about Bran, but I can't specifically recall without looking it up. What they
were talking about he'd be better off dead or something like that.
Yeah, I think so. And then Tyrion says, "Have you gone and paid your respects?" And he's like, "Why would I do that?" And eventually leads to a slap. But back to this chapter, yes, both times when he has Sansa punished, he uses Sir Meryn. And I wondered, I noticed that too, and I spent some time thinking about it. And also, when he threatens to drag her up the stairs up to the battlements, he says, I could have Sir Meryn do it, or you could do it. But you're going up there one way or the other. I think it actually might be the Hound that says you're going up, or she thinks she completes his thought and thinks he's going to have me up there one way or the other. But yeah, so I wondered if possibly that maybe he thinks the Hound might not do it, and that would be awkward for all involved. Does he not trust the Hound to? Maybe he notices that there's a softness for Sansa.
Okay, but that's what I was getting to, you see. If Joffrey has noticed this, then Joffrey Baratheon, first of his name, would do exactly the opposite.
He would make the Hound do it.
He would make the Hound hit her.
Yeah.
He would love nothing more than to see the additional pain inflicted on the person inflicting the punishment.
My only thought about that, because I agree, but maybe he has a little bit of father figure like feelings for the Hound. I mean, so far, the Hound is the only adult male around Joffrey at most times. And sometimes it felt, especially earlier when he was still Prince Joffrey, it felt like he was trying to impress the Hound sometimes with his words and toughness.
And so maybe the Hound is sort of weary of his antics, and Joffrey recognizes that and doesn't want to...
Yeah, I don't know.
Overplay it.
Yeah, it doesn't fit perfectly. It definitely doesn't fit like the obvious answer. Yeah. The most obvious answer is that he realizes that Sir Meryn Trant is a dead-eyed psycho who will be unfazed by punching a 12-year-old girl in the face.
But again, that's kind of like, it just takes away one of the frissons of it. You know? Right. Who shall I get to punch this girl? Those two guys who look like they don't want to do it, or the dead-eyed psycho? Dead-eyed psycho. You know?
Yeah, it's the easiest option. Because later, when Sir Meryn comes to call on Sansa to bring her down to the throne room, he acts like, he hadn't just punched her in the face just before that. And she realizes, oh, he doesn't hate me. He doesn't love me. He doesn't care.
Just not to belabor this point, but I have an idea for why. I wonder if Joffrey sees the Hound as completely his man, would do his beck, and would do his...
I see where you're going with this, yeah.
And he wants Meryn Trant to be another person like that, so he's sort of like conditioning him.
Prove his worth, yeah. Prove your loyalty by punching this 12-year-old girl.
You do exactly what I say when I say it, and then you'll be in my inner circle,
Yeah, and real quick...
The Hound's already done that.
Meryn Trant, if you remember, he was also the one that was sent after Arya that got into the fight with Syrio Forel. So, in case you're wondering, where have I heard that name before? That was the same member of the Kingsguard. Yeah. But that second one, the second punch up on the battlements, Sansa describes his outfit when he comes to get her to take her to the throne room, and she mentions that he's wearing gauntlets. So, he punched her... He held her with one hand and punched her with the other, wearing gauntlets.
Well, except the second time, didn't he hold her by the front and then slap her and then backhand her? I thought that's what he did specifically.
He did go back, left to right and right to left. Whether his hand was closed or not, I'm not sure. Probably would be
open-handed,
Maybe.
But pretty painful with a gauntlet on, that's for sure.
I was thinking it.
And Meryn Trant doesn't seem like the sort of guy who'd go, hang on a second, take the gauntlet off. I don't want to hurt her.
Yeah, I was thinking for sure it would break a 12-year-old girl's jaw. It would likely break my jaw, but her bones might still be hardening. I don't know. Yeah. So back to the Hound and Sansa. There's definitely something. Because you recall back a previous Sansa chapter after the tourney when he was walking her back to the Tower of the Hand and he completely opened up to her and he, talked to her about his hatred for his brother and, kind of got a bit vulnerable and then realized how vulnerable he was getting, exposing himself so much that way. And then he threatened to kill her if she ever told anybody that. And here he is again, treating her with as much kindness as he possibly can. And I find, that is a very interesting dynamic there. And I wondered, if you remember back to Ned 7, Ned's watching Gregor Clegane, and he mentions that Clegane had a sister who died under queer circumstances. And that would obviously be Sandor's sister as well. And I wondered if maybe Sansa reminds him of her in some way, or something like that.
That's definitely a possibility, yeah. I mean, Sansa has another adult admirer here in King's Landing, of course, in Peter Baelish.
Right.
So maybe I think the impression we're given of her is quite pretty. But she is only 12.
Right.
I mean, you'd think that most guys would not be like, whoa, check that out, Most guys would be like, she'll be a beautiful lady one day.
Right. Yes, you would think that would be the reaction.
But then maybe, so Peter Baelish has a reason to fancy her, which is that she looks like Catelyn.
Yeah.
I like your idea for the Hound, because that does sort of like put a more fraternal hue on it. So maybe
my other thought was maybe the Hound, he only deals with really rough, tough things. Maybe he rarely sees such purity and innocence in someone, and so he's taken by her in that regard as well.
Yeah, but I mean, Marcella.
Yeah,
he sees her probably.
That's true.
I mean, she's not pure as driven snow. She said mean things about Bran, I think.
Arya, when she thought Arya was a little gutter rat, when she was trying to catch the black cat.
Arya,
she said some mean things,
and Cersei, of course, doesn't really qualify us.
But
there are pretty ladies around who are soft and delicate.
Yeah,
it seems.
Yeah,
there's an affinity here which is out.
Yeah. Regardless,
outsized.
though, it's not good when the man who rode down Micah like a pig is the voice of reason and comfort. That you're not surrounded by the cream of the crop of gallant men at that point, if that's happening. And another thing I noticed is that Sansa describes the Hound when the Hound. So the people that come into her chamber is King Joffrey, Aerys Oakheart, who's a member of the Kingsguard, obviously Sir Meryn Trant, a member of the Kingsguard, and Sandor Clegane, who is also a member of the Kingsguard. But the other two are wearing their Kingsguard garb, whereas the Hound is just wearing I think is like a green and brown vest or something like that. So he's already shed his new Kingsguard attire. And I just found that interesting that he just got this stuff. You'd think he'd be wearing it all the time, but I guess he really doesn't care.
You're flirting with my pedantry here, so be careful.
Oh, okay.
I've got something about that very moment.
Right, I will stop at that then.
Yeah. So again, Sansa is still hung up on the sort of the reneging on the deal that the Lannisters seem to have done. But she is, obviously she's beginning to realise how badly manipulated she was, but again, not all the way back to source of when she inadvertently and unconsciously betrayed the whole of the Starks.
Yeah, and then, so speaking of the Queen, she then later in the chapter, she keeps calling Joff my lord, and he keeps correcting her and getting more and more angry about it, saying, your grace, I am king now. And she does it one too many times, and he says, you really are stupid. My mother even says so. And that kind of hurts Sansa, because she up to this point has thought so highly of Cersei, wanting to be a queen just like her, as she has said a few times. And, I thought, that could be true. Cersei certainly could have said that to Joff. But also, maybe Joff is just lying because he knows that Sansa respects Cersei, and he really enjoys inflicting pain on her, knowing that this would do that.
Yeah, both possible, but I'm going to go with Cersei said it, because it's not the kind of thing he would have thought of, and also it is exactly what Cersei would think of Sansa.
Right. Yes.
Because she did do the really dumb, gullible thing of come trotting to them and tell them, well, if you're curious, we're leaving on a boat at noon and I don't want to go.
Please don't make me go. Yeah. He says that he tells Sansa that he told his mother not to worry about it, that if their first child is stupid, he'll have Sansa's head chopped off and find a smarter wife. So don't worry, Mom. We'll handle that. It's not exactly the sweet things that he was saying to her when they were off on their romantic date near the Ruby Ford.
No, it's a terrible... it's terrible to treat a person that way, but it's also not very smart. You've made an enemy here.
Sure.
Now, she may be a 12-year-old girl now, but she won't always be a 12-year-old girl.
Right.
And you're not doing anything to make this situation better.
Oh, no.
You could try. There's not much you could do, but you could try.
Yeah. Basically, in every way, he's not tried to mend any kind of, there's not much you can do to mend chopping her father's head off. That's... Nope. But you could at least maybe make her life a little more comfortable. And,
exactly.
But no, it's doing nothing.
I had to do it. He was a traitor. I have to set a message for other traitors. Yes, I'm really sorry. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you.
None of that. Nope.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that Joffrey says that they're still to get married. That's Cersei's decision that they will still get married. I'm very curious about that. It feels like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
What's in it for anyone there?
Right. I thought about that as well, and I came up with two possible options, just in my own head here. One, marriage to the firstborn daughter is one way to keep the Starks under their thumb.
But the Starks are already in open rebellion.
Yeah, but as long as if they marry off their daughter, if they marry their daughter to Joffrey, they're also tying themselves to Winterfell. I mean, she's the firstborn daughter, secondborn child of Lord Eddard Stark, which, one, in some ways might give them some sort of claim to Lord of Winterfell, their child being, a Lord of Winterfell, perhaps. Especially if they manage to kill Robb or something. And two, think of how it must anger the Starks to think that they've married her off to Joffrey, who had her father's head chopped off.
Well, that's a point. That is a point. Just out of spite. But then you are blowing the opportunity to make a marriage that would really matter.
A better alliance.
Really cement a relationship. A better alliance.
Right.
Because remember, this is not over yet. I mean, the North, the battle between the Lannisters' forces and the North is in the balance at the moment.
Yes, right.
The Lannisters won round one, but that was because the Starks threw it.
Right.
And then they won round two.
Yeah.
So you'd think that a better match might be Joffrey with a Tyrell,
right.
say. That Tyrells have a daughter, don't they?
Yeah, Marjorie. Yep.
Or, I don't know.
Which is, Marjorie is the one that Renly wanted to replace Cersei with and have Robert marry.
Right, that's right.
So it would, and she's
or maybe
she's
Dawn.
Young.
I mean, Dawn is kind of out of the picture, but someone from Dawn maybe.
Right.
You're never going to get the Starks back on your side.
No.
You chopped Ned's head off.
Maybe they're hoping to, let the word be known. We're planning on marrying Cersei. Not marrying Cersei. We're planning on marrying Sansa to Joffrey, causing the Starks to rush, get sloppy, make mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
Just a thought.
Yeah. Definitely a possibility.
But Sansa says, I don't want to marry you. You chopped my father's head off, which is pretty solid reasoning,
Yeah, of all the second sentences to follow up the first sentences, there's hardly been a bigger clincher in history.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
I don't like your moustache. No, not as good.
Joff says, I never promised to spare him, only to be merciful. And if he wasn't your father, I'd have him torn or flayed, and instead I gave him a clean death. And, we had wondered at the time when she had made her plea to Joffrey in the throne room in that chapter, was there any chance that Joff was going to honor his promise to her for mercy? And everybody, including Joffrey, knew full well that she didn't mean give him a clean death. No, that was not what she was hoping for. She meant minimum take the black,
Yeah.
Send him to the Night's Watch.
The one thing I will say is, I don't think that Joffrey was being dishonest. I think he actually, when he said to Sansa, your words have moved me, I'm going to show mercy, he meant to, but he is such a psycho that when the moment came, he forgot that he'd said that.
Yeah, that's a good
point. And actually, this whole thing is just sort of like a after-the-fact sort of reappraisal. Let's say that was merciful compared to what I could have done,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hadn't thought about it that way. Yeah, but this isn't pedantry necessarily, but why didn't Ned ask for a trial by combat? Tyrion did in the Vale. And, one thing we learned from that chapter is that no highborn person can be denied a trial by combat or a trial if requested. And even if he's too injured because he's got a broken leg, he can have a champion fight on his behalf. We learned in the Tyrion chapter when he asked for the trial by combat, info as well. Couple thoughts. I asked my question. Do you have? I had some thoughts to answer, but did you have any thoughts on?
Well, my only real thought on it was his mind melted when he was told, "You're going to have your head chopped off," and he didn't think to say it.
I had the same thought. Might not have been thinking clearly. Didn't have time to consider his options. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
I agree.
Now hold on a moment. I believe I have one more. Phone a friend.
Yeah. Like time out.
Yeah.
Wait. This is not what we agreed upon down in the dungeons. I need some time to think
Varys.
on this.
Varys, where are you? Tell them what you told me. I've never seen this man before in my life.
My other thought was when Tyrion asked for the trial by combat, he didn't have Sansa to think about. He could ask for a trial by combat in front of everybody like that, and if he wasn't granted it, especially on the pulpit in front of the Sept of Baelor, it would be really hard for them to deny the request for a trial because there's tons of people watching, and he's at the Sept of Baelor. But who knows what they would have done to Sansa? Maybe he couldn't take that gamble.
You mean if he'd won the trial by combat?
No, during the process between asking for it and the trial, maybe Sansa might have had an accident or, accidentally fell out a window or drank some rat poison or something like that.
But it's an interesting thought. I wonder if, we could just give Ned 2 more minutes.
Right.
Would he have come up with this? So Cersei has told Joffrey that it's not fitting for a king to strike his wife. She is a good mom. Unfortunately, Joffrey sees the workaround for this, and he gets his henchman to do it for him.
Yeah. We know that Robert hit her. We saw it. It was at Ned's bedside. Cersei called King Robert a joke of a king, and that he should be the one wearing the skirt. And he hit her so hard she kind of flew into the wall. And we had speculated at the time and a few times after that might possibly have been the final straw to put the plan to have him killed in place, because it was shortly after that the plan to have him killed was put in place. So, it seems odd that there's so much parenting lessons not going on between, no moral or, no lessons going on here except for this one lesson.
So Sansa watches Joffrey presiding over court, where he pays attention to only about 1 in 10 of the cases brought before him. He leaves the rest of the small council. But when one does take his interest, he universally responds with something cruel and unusual.
Yeah.
A thief loses his hand. Knights who have a land dispute are forced to duel to the death. A woman who petitioned for the freedom of someone who committed treason ends up in jail.
Just for his, I think his bones or his skull or something. She just wanted to bury him.
That's right. She just wanted his body. That's right.
And he said, "Well, if you loved someone who committed treason, then you must be, a person that would commit treason as well." And they dragged her off to the dungeons. Yeah, we're definitely the realm's definitely in for a bumpy ride if this is what his justice is going to look like. And are we heading toward a Mad King 2.0 here?
Yeah. Although I think if you look back on history, 2.0 is an underestimate of how many Mad Kings have been, just FYI. But I was going to say that the realm would be better off if he turned into his father and sort of lost interest entirely and just abandoned the whole thing.
Absolutely, it would. But yes, they need to get him a hobby.
He doesn't seem that... Yes. He fell far from that tree because that tree wasn't his tree, so...
Yeah, right. Exactly. He fell so far from that tree that it was almost like he wasn't even an apple in that tree.
It's surprising that an orange tree grew here.
Now, every time we deal with a regent situation, it creeps closer and closer to pedantry for me. But, Sansa says that even when he made a ruling that not even the queen could sway him. And again, I'm left wondering, what is the point of a regent? Either the regent is in control until the king comes of age, or you don't have a regent.
Yeah, but I think you're being too pedantic over this one. I mean,
yeah, too literal.
Too pedantic is. I think basically she's got the authority to speak for him whenever she wants, but he always has the ability to overrule because he is the king.
I guess.
She needs to do is just leave the important matters until after bedtime. That's what she's going to do.
After 8 p.m., that's when we make all the important decisions. Of course, that decision for that lady who asked for the bones of the man who was killed for committing treason, that probably feels like a pretty important decision to her, to be hauled off to the dungeons as well. So
I would say so. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just like either the king's not in control and there's a regent in charge, or there's no need for a regent and the king just makes whatever rulings he wants to make.
Yeah. So Janos Slynt we see on the small council for the first time. The 9 out of 10 cases that Joffrey has no interest in are taken care of by the small council, so the small council are all there. Janos Slynt has his place on that council. Sansa really wants to hurt Janos Slynt. She's channeling her inner Arya.
She does indeed, yes.
She wishes some hero would throw down and cut off his head. And she recalls Littlefinger telling her that life is not a song, sweetling. You may learn that one day to your sorrow. That's what she was told by Littlefinger Baelish.
Yeah.
Maybe if she'd passed that message along to her father, he might have got the message about Peter Baelish a bit sooner.
Right. So that made me... when she reiterates that phrase here in this chapter, and it got me wondering, clearly she's learned this the hard way, that life is not a song, and as she thinks... In real life, the monsters win. And I wondered if there was any chance when Littlefinger said that to her, if he was just slightly tipping his hand to her, knowing that she would not pick up on what he was conveying to her, because so much of what went wrong for Ned could very easily make an argument that Peter Baelish was behind most of it.
Yeah. But here I'll make the same point that I made earlier in previous episodes, although I'm just guessing because I don't actually remember. But what I imagine I said was that I think Peter Baelish didn't make an early decision about which side he was on. He waited and waited and waited. And sure, he could see an end game in which he was going to turn the tables on Ned and put a knife to his throat and pay the gold cloaks to spring a trap on him. And he could see it, but he hadn't chosen it at this point.
Huh.
So
yeah, I guess that's
how I feel.
That is a less cynical way to look at it. That he was still keeping his options open. Whereas to me, it felt like everything he did was leading Ned down to making the decisions that were leading him down the path to where he ended up.
Now, I haven't done my homework on this, and maybe I should before I make this argument again, but if you look back on all the things that Peter Baelish said to Ned Stark, I bet you could make a strong case for what I'm saying.
I think so,
too. If Ned Stark had listened to Peter Baelish...
You're right. He said, first thing he told him was, don't trust me.
Well,
and the last thing he told him was, don't trust me.
Yeah. Everything in between doesn't really matter what he said.
Right.
You shouldn't have been trusting it. But I know he gave him some solid advice that Ned spurned.
Yes. Of course, maybe he knew Ned was not going to take that advice. There's some things, like lying about the origin of the dagger, claiming it was his and he lost it to Tyrion, that was purely just a lie to pit the Lannisters and the Starks more against one another.
Is that proven that was a lie?
Well, according to Tyrion, it is.
Tyrion didn't. Yeah, but Tyrion didn't say he owned it. But so yes, there's a lie of sorts. But I just wonder how big the lie is. I mean, maybe Jaime owned it or something like that.
Maybe. All we know is that Tyrion insists. Even afterward, he told Bronn, "I don't know this dagger. I didn't own this dagger."
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, probably wasn't tipping his hand. It just seemed like it's possible because so much could be attributed to him.
Yeah. So up on the battlement, Sansa, trying to avoid eye contact with the seven heads, looks longingly northwards towards Winterfell, which is a big change of character for her because she's always wanted to come to King's Landing, and I don't think she ever expected to miss Winterfell, but You make things bad enough for someone, they'll get lonely for home.
Right, yep. And not only did she want so badly to come to King's Landing, it was her doing that she ended up not being on her way back to Winterfell, because she was so upset about the thought of leaving King's Landing and Joffrey that she went to the Queen and told that they were heading out in a few hours.
Yeah.
So that's...
But again, she didn't get all the way back to the...
Right.
That was the fulcrum.
Right.
So, one thing I noticed was Cersei's reported to have cried at the news of Jaime's capture.
Yeah.
So, that's what Joff says. Is it just fear for her twin lover, father of her children? Or is it rage at Joffrey for killing Ned?
Yep.
Because while Jaime wasn't captured, killing Ned was like, oh, not a great strategic move, but we can get by. But now, you've plunged your father into very serious peril.
Absolutely could be the second option there. Yeah, we don't know because we don't know. She almost certainly would not have known about Jaime's capture before Joffrey had Ned beheaded, because you would think she would have fought harder to stop that if she had known.
Right. She might have even said it before they... Yeah, I'm sure they haven't. I'm sure they didn't have news of that. Because they never mentioned it in that chapter. Well, but it was Arya's chapter.
Yeah,
so.
Arya wouldn't have known. It's just taking a guess, I guess. Maybe we'll find out later, if we get someone's perspective who might know. Yeah. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It could be because she was upset at his capture, or it could be because I cannot believe you've put him in this peril. Yep. You would think that they discussed it. Well, yeah, they did, because Joff says up on the pulpit, my mother has asked me to allow Ned to take the Black. So they had to have had this conversation previously, where
but I think that Cersei was saying that even though the war wasn't going against them, I think it's still strategically the right thing to do to not kill Ned.
Right, I agree.
So Septa Mordane is found. We did wonder where she got to. Again, kind of strange brutality.
Yeah,
she's a Septa first and foremost, and a Stark loyalist second, presumably.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's just pure evil and cruelty. Yeah. I mean, send her to the Sept of Baelor or some other Sept and let her live out her life as a Septa at a Sept somewhere. I get they want to break Sansa. Keeping her all alone and surrounded only by Lannister loyalists is, keeping her completely under their thumb. But maybe she'd be more accepting and mentally stable if she had at least one familiar face around.
Right.
And that Septa
and you could totally keep an eye on them to find out what she's saying.
Yeah.
And if she ever says something like, we'll get you out of here one day, then you chop her head off.
Right, yeah. And the Septa, she seems like the obvious choice because, she's a Septa. For one thing,
she's not a Stark.
Yes,
exactly. She's a woman of the church. Yeah,
and she's a female role model for Sansa. Maybe they want Cersei to be her only female role model going forward. I don't know, but
interesting.
But there is something I found interesting when he's showing her Ned's head, and then he says Ned's head's on the spike, and he says, "You want to see some more?" And Sansa has kind of decided to do what the Hound has been suggesting to her. Just go along with it. Do whatever he wants. Save yourself some pain. So she says to him, if that pleases you, your grace. And so he's taking her along.
She even said your grace.
Yeah, right? She got it right that time, I think.
Good.
And he's going along past all these spikes with heads on it, and there's two empty. And he says, I'm saving these two for my uncles, meaning Stannis and Renly. And this is not the first time that it's come up. Back in the Tyrion chapter, Tywin wanted to finish things with Robb Stark quickly, so he could turn his attentions to Stannis. But so far we have had no news that either uncle has made any official claims to support Ned. Now, Renly did leave unexpectedly in the middle of the night, in the night of his brother's death. but Stannis has been completely silent. So maybe it's that lack of action to support Joff that in his mind and the Lannisters' minds is equal to treason, that they're not coming out and saying, this is bogus, Ned is lying.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, maybe news has got out that they're rousing armies or whatever have you, but yeah, it feels like there's an assumption that if you're not with us, you're against us.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So throughout the chapter, Joffrey badgers Sansa for what she's going to get him for his name day. But that seems like weird to me. Like, she's confined to quarters. What's he supposed to... He does not seem like the kind of guy who would really love something she made for him. He looks like someone who wants a new Xbox, for sure.
Right.
He wants the latest gadget.
He doesn't want some doily that she has knitted for him in her chambers.
But that's the most she could do. I mean, it's...
I personally think this whole thing, because he brings it up quite often through the chapter, I think he's setting her up to reveal his plans to give her Robb's head. Because...
that whole time was just so he could... make that funny joke.
I think so. Because the last time he says it, he then says, maybe I should give you something for my name day, and then goes through about how he's going to raise a host after his name day and, go defeat Robb and then bring Sansa Robb's head back.
And then Sansa spoiled it by zinging back.
That's right.
Good for Sansa. Well done.
Yeah, didn't
work out so well. Maybe he'll bring me your head.
Yeah.
That's worth the slap across the face, even with the gauntlet.
Probably after the fact. After her lip has healed, she was like, I'm glad I said that. I'll do that again.
Easy for me to say. I didn't get hit by Meryn Trant.
But he says to her that Cersei says he can't go raising a host and riding off into the Riverlands. He has to stay in King's Landing in case either of his uncles attack. Again, we've had no evidence that either of them are planning on doing so. They very well may be, but we have no evidence of it. But if they are, she's absolutely right. It would be a terrible idea for the king to raise a host from King's Landing and ride north into the Riverlands to fight, because if either of those uncles did attack at that point, they would just waltz into the Red Keep, because
very true.
There wouldn't be much fight to put up if he took a host north with him.
Actually, I like this plan. Let's hope that that's what comes to pass.
Yeah, she should advocate for it.
Yeah. I want Robb's head too. He was never very nice to me. So Sansa considers shoving Joffrey off the battlements. He's standing right on the edge. She probably would die, maybe fall with him, but she would save the realm from a lot of grief.
Yeah, especially given today's court session, if that's how all the sessions are going to go.
Yeah. But the Hound intervenes and saves Joffrey, perhaps intentionally, perhaps inadvertently.
Yeah. And this part made me think about something we had talked about previously, about how Arya and Sansa would both fare so terribly in each other's shoes at this point.
Yeah.
Because Arya definitely would have pushed him. But, just like how Sansa would not be faring very well, likely loose in King's Landing, Arya would be doing, she probably would have died earlier in her room when Sir Meryn Trant was punching her, because she would have not let up with Joffrey. She would have, kept her foot on the gas and just kept egging him on until Sir Meryn punched a hole in her head or something.
I like this parallel universe you're creating.
It's just they're both best suited for where they are right now. Arya would be doing terribly as a captive in court, and Sansa would be doing terribly as a basically like a gutter rat living in the streets of King's Landing.
Yeah. So just one last comment. I really wanted to know what life is like on the small council now, because the small council's changed. Obviously, Ned has gone,
right,
and now the only person in the Red Keep that we have POV is Sansa. That's everybody else is gone. We have Arya, but she's not in the Red Keep. She's unlikely to get small council information to us.
Seems unlikely.
So,
yes.
but I would love to know. I mean, so Cersei and Janos Slynt have been added to the council, and Ned removed, obviously.
Yeah, and Barristan
so that's a lot.
Selmy.
Oh, and Barristan Selmy.
Yeah, who's
and
also,
Renly, of course.
Yeah, so
Renly, of course, is gone as well.
Ned and Barristan Selmy definitely bring more straightforward thinking, doing the right honorable thing, and they've both been booted.
And Renly brought a little bit of, knocking down the puffed up royalty.
Right, yeah.
So now it seems like it's just like rotten people and sycophants.
Absolutely, yeah.
I can't wait to find out what Peter Baelish and Varys are thinking. Because they're both players.
Right, yeah.
And they must be playing right now because there's no room for dissent on that council.
No. You might have been able to make a case to Robert if you
right.
If you weren't so inclined to do so, but you don't want to go against Joffrey right now. He's just completely unstable.
Hey Joffrey, I don't like what the small council's saying to you.
Yeah.
Can we get rid of your mother, please? Yeah, it's not so great.
No.
So anyway, background. There's not a lot of background in this chapter, I have to say. So I just mentioned name days. Joffrey continually mentions his name day throughout this chapter. I used to live in Greece, as you know, and in Greece they don't celebrate birthdays; they celebrate name days.
Huh.
And the name day is the day of your patron saint, the saint that you're named after. It's their special day, whatever you call it, Saint's Day.
Okay.
And so it's not the same, and that's a much bigger deal in Greece than birthdays are.
Oh wow, really? Huh, I did not know that.
I'd always assumed that name days in Song of Ice and Fire were the same kind of deal, but it's not true. In Westeros, at least, babies are named the day they are born, and that's why it's called your name day. It's not called your birthday. It's called your name day.
Okay.
But they are named the day they're born. So actually, my own son, his name day would be 2 days away from his birthday because it took us 48 hours to come up with something. We called him baby for 2 days.
2 days younger than he actually is. Oh, that's really neat.
So, but wildlings don't name their babies until their second birthday because of
mortality rate might be higher up north of the wall.
Mortality rate up there too high. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other thing that just sort of piqued my curiosity was that Sansa mentioned that the heads were dipped in tar before they were mounted on the spikes, and that was as a preservative. And she said that it actually helped her a little bit when she looked at them because they were kind of unrecognizable because they were covered in tar.
Right,
which
yeah.
Seems like it defeats the object a little bit.
Yes. What's the point of putting that head on a spike if no one knows who the head is?
Right. So I just wondered if that was actually a common thing. And so as long as 2,300 years ago, heads were displayed dipped in conifer resin to preserve them. It wasn't completely clear. The archaeologists are a little bit torn on whether that was to do what Joffrey's doing, sort of a menacing sort of apparition,
right.
Or if actually it was just an homage to the dead or some kind of celebration of the dead.
Okay.
Instead of like a tombstone, you put Mum's head on a spike on her grave.
Okay.
It seems like that's not likely, but who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows what the ancients did? To keep with the Greek theme, the ancient Greeks also used cedar oil for the same job.
Huh.
And apparently these things would work. They would keep the smell in, the bugs out, so they would preserve the head for much longer.
Okay.
So you could keep it up there.
Good info.
It's pretty nasty, though. Yeah,
it is pretty nasty, but it's also interesting.
As I was saying, we cater to our entire audience, even those who are desperate to learn about how to behead someone and keep the head from rotting.
In case you were ever curious. Yes.
Comparison with television show, we miss the early part. We don't see Sansa in her room. We don't see the first punch. We join Sansa when she's unwillingly observing Joffrey holding court. We do get to hear... We haven't actually mentioned that one of the people... Did we mention that one of the people that he ruled on was a guy who sang a bawdy song about his father?
I think we forgot to mention him. We mentioned the thief, we mentioned the knights, and we mentioned the woman. We forgot to mention.
Yeah, so one guy that he weighed in on was a singer who sang a bawdy song about King Robert and the boar, and Joffrey makes him sing it there and then in front of everybody. And that's the bit that gets into the TV show, and it is pretty funny, in fact, because it basically... It compares the boar and all the awful things the boar did to King Robert to what it was like to be married to Cersei. Oh, she's not laughing at that song.
I bet she's not.
In fact, nobody in the throne room is laughing, even though it's quite funny. And Joffrey gives out the same punishment in the book that he gave in the TV show, which is to offer the musician which of his tongue or his hands does he want to lose. And Sir Ilan comes and does the business.
You know, I was thinking he could talk to Sir Ilan about which he should choose, but wait.
Yeah, mime it to me, Sir Ilan.
If you could do it again, which would you choose?
He chose tongue, which I'm not sure I would choose, but I don't know.
Oh, no, I would not choose tongue as a singer.
It slightly depends on how many fingers. Was it 10 fingers or was it 5 fingers? If it was 5 fingers, I might go for the fingers.
Yeah, I can't remember. I don't recall it being both hands. No, he says fingers. He doesn't say how many. Yeah, it says fingers, not hand, huh?
As soon as he was out of there, I'd be arguing with Sir Ilan. He did not say all of them.
Right. I'll give you 2.
He'll be mad at you.
You can have the 2 off my left hand.
The scene with the heads on the spikes is set on a very scary wooden bridge with no rails on either side. So Joffrey's peril is much greater. He's not just sort of like up against a wall that he could be pushed over. I mean, he could be easily. It was not like she would take strength to knock him over. She could just walk up to him and shove him off.
Just give him a nudge. Down he would go.
Gregor Clegane literally prevents her from doing it. There's no question in the TV show. He sees what's coming. She takes a step towards Joffrey and he grabs her and pulls her back and then dabs her face. So absolutely no question. That's why I was asking you before what you thought.
Right.
The TV show was clear
about it.
The Hound was... He both saves her and then he dabs her face to hide the fact, because Joffrey sort of reacts to the movement, and then the dabbing of the face is the cover.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Right.
Just telling you.
Yeah. You said Gregor,
okay, pedantry.
But I know you meant Sandor. You said Gregor.
I keep calling him. I've been doing that all day, actually.
Really?
Even sort of like when I was writing and practicing earlier, I kept calling him Gregor. I've done it a bunch of times. Sorry.
I never
Every
make
time I
those
said
mistakes.
Gregor, I meant... No, you.
I know. I'm perfect
Sansa
when it comes to names.
So, pedantry. Now, it was what you were talking about when the 3 Kingsguard arrive.
Right.
Sansa literally says, the Hound and 2 of the Kingsguard.
She said, yes, she said the Hound and 2 Knights of the Kingsguard.
2 Knights of the Kingsguard. So, my question is this. Somebody forgot that the Hound is a member of the Kingsguard. Was it George Martin or was it Sansa Stark?
Right.
You see, because it's a POV, you can always argue, well, that's her point of view. She didn't remember because he's not wearing the gear that he's a Kingsguard. But literally, I read it and I was like, that's not right. There's 3 members of the Kingsguard. It's not.
Right.
Oh, the word other should have been there. But then again, if it was Sansa's point of view, then maybe she just forgot.
Yeah, maybe. She's had a lot on her mind.
She has.
She did say Knights of the Kingsguard, which differentiates.
There is that. That is a differentiator, that's true.
But you're right, they are all members of the Kingsguard. So
yeah.
my little piece of pedantry, it's not really pedantry, I guess, but that singer's, I mean, come on, man. You can't sing that disparaging song to that crowd. Fake it. Make up some other lyrics. On the spot. Yeah. I mean, you're a singer. You've got to be able to whip up something. It's not like the members of the small council have likely heard this thing firsthand. You got to make some changes to make it sound less disparaging towards Cersei.
Yes. I mean, something along the lines of, I'm not faking, the boar's got the king's bacon. Or something like that. You know? I mean, enough that it would have got a laugh in the tavern, but not so much that you're going to lose a hand or a tongue.
Right. I mean, you can't sing that song at its actual lyrics in that situation.
The song in the TV show, man, you wouldn't have to be Cersei to want that guy to be decapitated.
And you'd have to think he wasn't taken directly from the tavern to the throne room, that he had some time.
He had time to write a new song.
One that maybe even flatters the queen and disparages King Robert in the boar.
Oh, that's so true.
What was he doing during his time in the dungeons?
I think he was adding more funny verses. Just wanted to go out in a blaze of glory.
Right. This is gonna be my last song. If I'm choosing tongue. Anyway,
you got some news and notes?
We have a little bit. We don't really have much to talk about, but we did get a really I particularly enjoyed the email we got from Sloan. It was actually a Facebook message.
Hey, Sloan.
Hi, Sloan. She mentioned how much that she actually enjoys my long-windedness. She said,
Well. Now, hang on. Let me interject a moment here, if you don't mind. I've seen some of Sloane's missives, and I believe you may have found a kindred spirit.
She said someone who is a kindred spirit of long-windedness, she appreciates my elaborations, if you will. She said, brevity might be the soul of wit, but long-windedness brings the tea.
Well, there you go.
So
that's a good one to live by, I think.
Yes, thank you,
well,
Sloan.
Thank you, Sloan.
I appreciate.
Always nice to hear from you.
Yes, I appreciate you having my back. I did read that to Stacy, who also struggles with my long-windedness. She did not change her tune at all about her thoughts on my long-windedness. So,
ironically, Carson struggles with my brevity.
Oh man,
it's taken a turn. All right, let's wind up.
All right.
So, poor Sansa. It seems she has gonna have to hide her emotions as best she can.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's sort of the best she's got. Try and just live through this.
Yeah. She I think she's starting to learn that she needs to appease his ego, that he wants to be feared, and that he gets a rise out of fearing her. So when she was having her most success with him is when she was feigning like nothing shocked her, nothing surprised her, whatever he wanted was right. He made her look at her father's head, and she said to him, "How long do you want me to keep doing this?"
Yeah.
Maybe if she can play the even keeled, don't get emotional. Because when she realized that she was where he was taking her, she kind of lost her cool for a moment and kind of broke down and was like, "No, please, please, please don't make me do this. Please don't make me do this." And that's when he kind of got all fired up about it. Then when she dropped back into that character of, okay, if that pleases you, your grace,
yeah,
that might be where she has to go.
Yeah.
But he is a truly sick monster to take her up there and show her her father's head.
Yeah.
And Septim Ordain's, but
it was interesting, like you said, you pointed this out, that he's very much assuming that Renly and Stannis are against him. He has spikes ready for them.
Yeah.
That's not leaving much room for debate.
No, it's not. We don't get all of the information that goes on, but we haven't heard anything from either of them, so we have no reason to understand why he feels this way.
Yeah, and we fear for the kingdom. He is every bit as bad as we thought he would be, and possibly worse.
Yep, are we heading into a second Mad King era? Hope not, but so far, he hasn't been in the position for very long, and it hasn't been a very good so far.
All right. Well, as always, you can reach us at ghost.harrenhall@gmail.com and follow us on Twitter at @GhostHarrenhall. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
And if you wouldn't mind going out and leaving us a 5-star rate or a really nice review, we certainly would appreciate it.
We will tell better jokes if you do.
That's right. We're holding back on the good jokes.
All right. Well, thank you for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.